Welcome to our fourth tutorial in the Introduction to Programming Using Python series. In this tutorial, we will be looking at graphical and command line user interfaces, gathering user input, what a programming statement is, and we'll talk about the next tutorial. Before we get into gathering user input in Python, I'd like to talk about graphical versus command line user interfaces. Now, anytime you write a program and you want that program to interact with the person using it, you need to create a user interface. There are different types of user interfaces. The two you're most likely familiar with are graphical and voice user interfaces. The latter being available on most smartphones where you interact with your phone using your voice. A graphical user interface, GUI for short, is the most prevalent type of user interface for computers today. It uses graphics along with the keyboard and the mouse to provide an easy-to-use interface to the program. A GUI provides windows, pull-down menus, buttons, icons, and wizards, as well as the mouse to enable users to interact with the operating system or application. A graphical user interface is what you're used to from your Windows or Mac operating system to the internet browser to the many applications you use on a daily basis. As an example, let's say you wanted to create a new folder on your C drive. You would go to your Windows Explorer, double-click on C. Now you can just right-click anywhere, select New, Folder, and a new folder has been created, the name of which is highlighted so you can enter the new name for the folder. Let's say Test Folder. Click Enter, and you're done. Your new folder has been created. You can double-click on it, now do other things. Similarly, if you wanted to delete it, you would go on the same Windows Explorer, and then you right-click on the folder you want to delete, let's say Test Folder. I right-click on that, I select the Delete option, and it's done. A command line interface, CLI, is a more classical approach in computers. It enables users to type commands into a terminal or console window to interact with the program. The program prompts the user for input or allows the user to input commands to which the program will respond and display the results in the same console window. As an example, let's say we wanted to do the same thing we did in the previous slide, create a folder and delete it. But this time we're going to use the Windows provided command prompt. Now to start this command prompt, click on your Windows Start button and type CMD and hit Enter. You can see here that we have a command prompt and we can input commands. So let's say I go cd \, which will take me to the root of the folder we're in, which is the C drive. Now go mkdir, which will create a new folder, and I can give it the folder name, test folder. Now you notice it didn't tell me anything, it just executed. If there is no error, it hasn't said anything. So to make sure that it was created, I go dir, which will list all the content of the C drive, and as you can see, the test folder has been created here. And I can go to it, do other things like copy files or delete or whatever. Now I can go cd ... which will go back one level, and to remove it, I go rmdir, test folder, again nothing, dir, and as you can see, it's now gone. As you can probably guess, in this set of tutorials, we want to concentrate on the concept of programming and the basics of Python. As such, we will stay away from graphical user interface since it introduces new issues and challenges. So for now, whenever we want to interact with the user and get input, we will do it using the command line. In Python, we use the idle interactive shell for this. Now Python makes getting your response from the command line very simple. Let's try that by opening up idle and very simply type in name equals input, open bracket, and give it a prompt surrounded by quotes. Let's say, what is your name? You'll notice that idle printed the prompt you gave it in a different color. So now you can enter something, let's say John. Now notice that there is no space between the question mark and the name that you entered. That's because in our prompt, we didn't specify a space. So Python basically prints exactly what you told it. It doesn't add anything. So if you wanted to add a space, you can do that. Now click enter. It doesn't tell you anything. But if we go print name, we can see that it recognizes a variable name and the value assigned to it is John. So again, let's try that again, but fix our prompt so that there is a space in it. Now you see the space. you enter John, again, the variable name has a value of John assigned to it. Now, if we type in name without the print and just hit enter, you'll notice that John is a string because it's surrounded by quotes. Input will always read whatever value the user types and will read it as a string. Now, this is fine for names, but if we wanted to read an integer value, a number, let's say age, enter your age, right? Let's say the user types in 20, type in age and hit enter, you'll see that 20 is actually read as a string. Now, if we wanted to do number type manipulation like age plus 10, you can see the exception that idle prints because 10 is an integer while age is a string and it can't do anything with it. So to go around that, if we wanted to read from the user an input that we wanted to convert to something else, let's say an integer, we would have to convert it ourselves. Let's define a new variable, your age. To convert to an int, we can use the int function. So int, brackets, and the string we wanted to convert, in this case being age. Now type in your age, enter, and you can see that now it's a number. So now we can do something like your age plus 10, and that works just fine. Now we can do something interesting with it. Let's say we wanted to tell the user how old they will be in whatever, 10 years. So age plus 10. And now we can say you remember the string formatting from last time. You will be 30 years in 10 years. Now, this isn't very useful, but you get the idea of how we can use these variables once we convert them to an int. There are other conversions we can do from string, but let's stick to int for now. We'll cover the rest when we get to them. Now, let's say we were expecting the user to input an integer, but they actually input something else. So let's go back to the same example and say age equals input, enter your age. Now, the user may not know that we're expecting an integer. They might think, well, I am 34 years. Python won't complain because it read age as a string. But once we want to convert that, now Python complains because 34 years is not an integer. And Python, or computer in general, won't be intelligent enough to pick out the 34 and leave the rest because it doesn't know what you actually mean. Now, for right now, let's not worry about that. This is something we will cover in exception handling. I just wanted you to be aware, so if you make a mistake, enter something that isn't a number, you recognize it when you see it. So for now, when we do ask the user for input in our exercises and you expect an integer, assume that the user will input an integer, and this we will cover in exception handling. So far, we have been writing code one statement at a time. Before we go any further, let's define what a statement is as far as programming is concerned. A statement is the smallest standalone element that still expresses an action to be carried out in the programming language. We've seen statements so far, like adding numbers. Let's try that out in idle. So 5 plus 3, that's a statement. Assigning variables, that's a statement. Asking for user input, enter your name. That's a statement. Now, we're going to be dealing a lot with gathering user input where we have to convert the value that the user has entered into something other than a string. We've seen in the previous slide that we're going to convert it to an int. And in these situations, you're going to see me defining two variables. So let's say, for example, we wanted to ask the user for their age. I will define a variable called age string. Now, age string is a string, which is what we expect. Then I will define another variable, in this case, age. And it will be the variable that will hold the integer value, which is what we're looking for. Now, I do this for the sake of clarity and to avoid any confusion, but there are other ways we can accomplish the same thing. So one thing that we can do is we can combine the statements. So let's say we do something like this. I want to define the age. I can go int, bracket, input. As you can see, I can put the input statement inside the int statement. I put my prompt, close the brackets. Now hit enter. Let's say the user enters something. Now type age, hit enter. See that age has already been converted to an int. Now, the reason that works is because Python allows you to combine statements. So this is a composite statement, and the way that works is Python will evaluate or execute the innermost statement first. So in this case, input, enter your age prompt. This is the innermost statement. It will be executed first. It will prompt the user for their age, and then the resulting value from that statement, which is a string, gets passed to the outer statement. So the string with 44 in it, which came to us from this statement, now gets passed to the int statement, gets converted to an integer, and the resulting integer is now stored in the age variable. Another way you can do it is we can still separate the two statements, but use the same variable name. So I can go age, age is a string, which is what we expect. Then I can go age equals int age, and that works as well. And the reason that works is because when you're assigning, in an assignment, the right side gets executed first. So in this case, when we are executing this statement, age equals int age, the right side will be evaluated by Python first, and the result from that gets assigned to the variable on the left. So when Python comes to evaluate int age, age at this point is still a string. It is this string. And this string gets passed to the int function, the int statement, gets converted to an integer, and the result from that, which is the integer 33, gets assigned to the age variable. Again, both ways will work. I prefer the more verbose way and to use different variable names, again, to avoid confusion and make sure that everything is clear. For next time, we're going to be looking at the conditional if statement, and we're going to build our first exercise, which is going to be a simple calculator.